Okay. Hello, hello. Merry Christmas, everybody's. Hope everybody has a fantastic time of fellowship and, around the things of the Lord and meditation on God's gift to us, a gift that nobody else could give us to bring us into His family as children of God. So, um, the previous message, of course, was in Portuguese, and I figured, a lot of people were wondering why I was speaking in Portuguese, and I figured, well, I made it. Maybe I better, make another video in English, so people can follow along. And but as I was making the video in Portuguese, I was realizing, maybe I should be a little bit more forceful, or maybe I should be a little bit stronger in words. Maybe I should start, preaching a little bit more or something. Because I was getting into, talking to my Portuguese speaking friends and everything. So I was, you know, getting into some very serious conversation. I figured, well, maybe I should be a little bit more forceful when I speak English too, instead of being such a pacifist or whatever. But anyway, so this message is going to be a little bit more forceful, maybe. Um, Today I have my geek glasses on because I was geek when geek wasn't cool, and so that's why I love science. That's why I love these kinds of stuff because I was always a geek at heart, or to begin with. Anyway, so I hope everybody's doing good. So let's get into it a little bit here. And may God bless everybody, and myself included, as we look through these very serious topics. Okay, let me go ahead and do this here. Everybody's good. And so now it's about this out of Africa claim. Now, this out of Africa claim is a very serious claim, and I've never seen anybody try to address it at all. Nobody's even attempted to address it. But basically, the out of Africa claim is that we have these genetic markers. We got this A's got its own marker, M91, and there's other A markers. There's various different ways this is shown, but we have the root of the tree here. This is what the claim is. The claim is that the root of the tree is with A. Of course, that's an arbitrary assignment. It's just what they believe, but they're backing it up with genetic evidence. The genetic evidence is what's the genetic evidence? These markers. Every haplogroup has their own markers, and you got the A, the B, then you got the C. It's got its marker, but like here, you got the A has got this marker. You got the B, which is the B and the C, and who knows what else. It's got this marker here. And this illustration might be a little bit out of date or something, but it's showing, the B and the C has these markers here. The C has this marker. The D has separate markers, but the C has this marker in common with the D and the E. But then again, there's another marker that the C has in common with the F. But it's not showing it very well right here. I'll go to another illustration. It'll show it better. But the point being is you have three distinct groups here. This is the Y chromosome, of course, the Y chromosome. And you have the A, B, C, D, and E is one group. It's very clear. It's one color. Then you got the F, G, H, I, and J is another color. Of course, not exactly. They're trying to make it a little bit obscure here, trying to obscure it. Then you have the K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and T, which is not included in here, but S and T, whatever. But which is the third group. So there's three distinct groups. It's very clear here. So we'll just go ahead and go to the next illustration here. Now this is where we get into the seriousness of the matter, because these are genetic signatures or markers, if you will, that are called SNP markers. It's like, like as I was saying, the A is A0 is strictly has this marker that nobody else has. The A1 has this marker here that who knows who has, because it's not saying who has it or who doesn't have it. It's just saying that A1 has this marker here. And you're supposed to assume that B has it. But then when you get to the B, you have the BT marker, which is the M42. This BT marker is shared with B and the rest of the world. In other words, the rest of the world from left to right. In other words, the A doesn't have it, but the B has it all the way through T. That's what BT means, is B through T. I guess they make it confusing, just to confuse people or make it intention or whatever. That's the way to have it. It takes a while to understand, but this CT marker is M168. It's C and the rest of the world. C through T, in other words. Just like this was B through T. Hold on a second. Messing things up here. C through T. CT is C with the rest of the world, including D and E and F. And F means the rest of the world, even though it's just F means not just F. It means F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and T. And this means C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and T. That's how confusing it is. But anyways, that's what it is. That's what it's supposed to be. That's what the claim. That's what the evidence is. It's a genetic marker, and the claim is that you have a stair step out of Africa from the African populations, which is A, B, C, D, and E, or African population. E being Egyptians, the ancient Phoenicians, descended from Put, that Josephus describes as Phoenicians, the first Phoenicians, not the later Phoenicians, and the Canaanites. Canaanites are E2. E2 too. Or E2, but they're E2. Anyway. But, so we got this marker here is C and the rest of the world. It's everybody. Then when you get to the CF, it's C and F, which means that it's excluding D and E for some reason. This is the way they have it. I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But CF means C, and F and the rest of the world to the right has this marker, potentially anyways, P143. Okay, and that's where DE, which is Canaanites, Phoenicians, and Egyptians, all go in different lineages, have different lineages. But C still retains the marker that D doesn't have and E doesn't have, but C retains a marker with the rest of the world to the right. And since C is in the Near East, the claim is that the rest of the world is descended from C, the original C. There's later descendants of C today, but original C, the claim is that the original C is the progenitor of the F, the G, the H, the I, the J, the K. Element O, P, Q, R, S, and T. Is that understood? This is a genetic marker that doesn't lie. And the claim is that, C came out of Africa, with the evidence of this marker, this genetic marker, to prove that all these other lineages are descended from C. That's the claim. It's called the Out of Africa claim, and I don't see any creationists addressing this issue. It's a very serious issue. I mean, you have all the evidence. Of course, we have all the evidence. It's obvious that, we're descended from Adam and Eve, that we only have a 5,000-year history since, people got off the ark and everything, all the nations and everything, no older than 5,000 years. The Bible history goes back 6,000 years, we know all that, right? And yet you still have this claim with these genetic markers, quote unquote, supposedly proving that everyone to the right is descended from a basically Hamitic population, or an out of Africa population. That's the out of Africa claim right there. And it goes on and on and on and on. GHIJK, G has this marker in common with everybody to the right. HIJK, element O, P, Q, R, S, and T. Because whenever it says K means K and everybody else. So it's K, element O, P, Q, R, S, and T. It keeps going. HIJK has this marker. Everybody to the right, shares the marker. That's HIJK, element O, P, Q, R, S, and T. This one is IJK, has this marker. That's IJK, element O, P, Q, R, S, and T. They all share this marker, potentially anyway. And, it goes on down the line because these are SNPs, right? Each one of these haplogroups has their own SNP, right? So, it's an open and shut case, right? I don't see any creationists addressing this, claim. You got the E2 is an M75. You got C1 is an M8. C5 is, this, G is the H, and, everybody has their own SNP. It's a single nucleotide marker. Polymorphism is what it is. Single nucleotide polymorphism. So, in other words, it's a single change in the genetic markers, and that everybody, from here to the right shares. Everybody from here to the right shares, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Well, where am I going? I'm getting sidetracked, I guess. going the wrong way or something, I guess. I don't know. Okay. If I can ever find it again. So what are we going to do about this claim? How are we going to refute this claim? Right? I don't see anybody addressing it. I don't see anybody talking about it. Everybody just kind of like avoids it. While in the meantime, the secular scientists, Dan and all his, his bunch, Dan, whoever the, evolutionist myth man, the evolution myth man, he's like waving this in your face, he's waving this in, creationist face, and they're saying that there's, more genetic diversity in Africa and that everybody came from the African population, it's like, evolution, everybody evolved from Africans, which is wrong to begin with. So how are we going to disprove this? This is a very serious claim, and of course, so this is addressed to, anybody who deals with genetics. That would be Dr. Nathaniel Jensen, or even, Donnie, had a video about out of Africa. I didn't see him, addressing this, this S&P marker claim or anything, So they're just waving this in our face, It's like, so what are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do? You gonna do anything about it, or just sit there and let them just wave it in your face and laugh at you? Okay, it's genetic evidence, out of Africa, cut and dry, closed case, nothing you can say, right? Well, there is a little bit we can say, right? I mean, for one thing, is that they have the root of the tree with the, African population. Neanderthals and Denisovans are here, right? Is there anything you can say about that? I know there's one thing I can say about it, is that Neanderthals have more in common with the Eurasian population, which is KLMNOPQRST. So, how is it that Neanderthals are rooted with the African population when the Africans don't have nearly as much in common with Neanderthals as the Eurasians do? And it's not just not just Africans. The Semitic population doesn't have anything to do with Neanderthals either. If you look at the genetic maps, which I've done before, Semitic populations don't have any Neanderthal, in their significant amounts. It's the Eurasians that have it. That's Europeans and Asians. The Asians have more than Europeans because the Asians have the Eurasian DNA, plus they have Eurasian mitochondrial DNA. It's all Eurasian, whereas the Europeans have Eurasian Y chromosome and Semitic mitochondrial DNA. So, there's not quite as much Neanderthal DNA as the Asians themselves, but they still have a significant amount of Neanderthal DNA, meaning, that basically Neanderthals were Eurasians. Not that Eurasians descended from them, obviously, but that they're more closely related to Eurasians than they are the Semitic populations or the African populations. So that's one thing, right? That's one thing we have to say, is that how in the world can Neanderthals be rooted here with the A0? How can you call them A000 or A00, whatever? Same thing with Denisovans. They got the Denisovans too, except that Denisovans aren't even the same as Neanderthal. Denisovans are, a mix of Neanderthal, Eurasian, but they're a mix of African too. How'd that happen? Well, and so the Denisovans, yeah, they're supposedly rooted in the same place where Neanderthals are, but how is it that Denisovans are, Eurasian and African and not Semitic populations? There's something wrong there. That doesn't make sense, right? Because if Neanderthals were rooted here, which is my argument with Lion Farm, if they're rooted here, then everybody should share equally the same amount of Neanderthal DNA. And why is it that only the Eurasians have Neanderthal DNA, and then when you go to the Denisovan DNA, that only the African and Eurasians share the Denisovan DNA. It's not making any sense, right? Okay, so there's got to be something that can be done about this, right? Let me see if there's anything going on here. Sandy, hello, Sandy. God bless. Hola, como vai você? JJ, would be a pain for you to speak quickly and say what an SMP is. Yeah. An SMP is a single nucleotide polymorphism, which is what I said. It's hard for me to be able to explain everything all at once, because people jump in and out and stuff. But that's what it is. A single nucleotide polymer. In other words, I explained before, the other one is STRs. It's a single tandem repeat. And a single tandem repeat is a repeat of a section of the Y chromosome that every male has. So the repeat would be different numbers of that tandem repeat. So in other words, you got the 13, the 11, the 10. Each section of DNA has its own number of the repeat. That would be a single tandem repeat in the Y chromosome. But the SNP is not like an STR. The SNP is a single tandem. In other words, is a single mutation that's passed on from generation to generation. So the single tandem repeat is the SNP. The STR is the, what did I say? No, the SNP is this single nucleotide polymorphism, is a single mutation. The STR is a single tandem repeat. In other words, that's the numbers you got at 10, 11, 13, the number of repeats of the same information, which corresponds to your lineage, where you fall. I fall into the I1 M253 lineage, where I have the single tandem repeats that match all my cousins going back 300 years. But in order to verify whether or not I really am an I1 M253, they do SNP test. The SNP test is the single tandem repeats, which is what I'm talking about right now. The single tandem repeats. No, this is so confusing. It's not a single tandem. The SNPs is a single nucleotide polymorphism. It's a mutation unique to your lineage, which is what I'm trying to talk about now. And but when you first take a Y chromosome test, it's an STR, single tandem repeat. But this one is to verify. This one here is to verify your single nucleotide polymorphisms. So each one of these things here is an SNP. It's a single mutation, a single marker. And I know it's very confusing. It was confusing for me when I first started looking at it. I couldn't figure it out. And I think it's confusing for a lot of people because a lot of people aren't even talking about it, not even addressing the out of Africa claim. But this is the out of Africa claim right here with these SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms. In other words, single mutations that everybody on down the line has, or except with the exception of this one here is A1. I think that's unique only to A1 because they don't say A through T. You know what I'm saying? Like this one here is unique to B and everybody on down the line. This one here is C, unique to C and everybody on down the line. In other words, it's a mutation that C had and everybody on down the line has. And since C was in Europe, or I mean, Near East Asia, or what do you call it? Western Asia, not Near East. Western Asia, or whatever it is. Since C was there, then they're saying that C is the progenitor of all these lineages, which confuses everything, which is not the case. So what I'm saying is that since it doesn't make any sense anyways, because Neanderthals are more comparable to the Eurasians to begin with, there's something wrong with the out of Africa claim. So how can we explain these markers here showing a stair step out of Africa? And I'm trying to get people's attention. That's why I'm saying when I was speaking in Portuguese, I felt I was being forceful, and a little bit preachy. And I was thinking, well, maybe I should be a little bit forceful and preachy when I speak in English too. When I speak in the English. So we need to get a hold of, Dr. Nathaniel Jensen and Donnie and everybody and say, wait a minute, nobody's addressing this out of Africa claim with the single nucleotide polymorphisms. It's open and shut case, right? It's a clear-cut case. Stair step out of Africa right here. These are SNP. These are genetic markers that connect everybody on down the line. It's like, how can you argue with that? I've been through this before, but I haven't been very forceful about it, And because probably people, don't pay too much attention, or they're just like, oh, you're just talking about SNPs again and STRs and haplogroups and stuff again, But it's this, this is very important. You can get together, around your, the campfire. I mean, the, what do you call it? The fireplace, with your gnomes on the shelf or elves on the shelf or whatever it is. And, talk about these SNPs, It's like, how do we resolve this thing here? Talk to Donnie, talk to Dr. Nathaniel Jensen, say, wait a minute. These guys, they got genetic evidence that we came out of Africa. You're just going to let them wave this in your face? You're just going to let them wave this in your face and say, aha, we got genetic evidence that proves we're out of Africa. And when we know it's not the case. I mean, I've shown time and time again that the genetic diversity, the haplogroup diversity is not in Africa. The haplogroup diversity is where the ark landed, and, both mitochondrial and Y chromosome, the genetic diversity is not in Africa. But this is what they have. They're waving it in your face, saying, ain't nothing you can say. So what are we going to say about this, right? Well, it turns out, before I get going, let me see if I'm okay here. It's so interesting. Be forceful. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Sandy. You're very supportive. You're so supportive, and I appreciate that because somebody has to be. Somebody has to be supportive. But anyway, okay. So now here's the solution. After trying to get everybody's attention, with forceful language and everything, here's the solution. Not only is this not a prove out of Africa, but it proves the table of nations. These genetic markers prove the table of nations right here in our face. This evidence that they're waving in our face is evidence of the table of nations right here. And we know this is all genetic distance, right? We know why these lineages are so long. We know that already. It's the rate of reproduction, the rate of the number of mutations. The genetic distance is the number of mutations, the number of generations, not an actual age. So this extreme age, which is supposed to be millions of years or hundreds of millions of years, or time 1,000 years or whatever. So it's 90,000, 130,000, 160,000, 180,000. That's their estimate of age. It's not an estimate of age. It's not an accurate estimate of age because, for one thing, we know for a fact that the progenitor of the Africans, which is Ham, is the youngest. He's the youngest son of Noah. He's the youngest. So how can you root the tree with the youngest son of Noah? Of course you can't. You can't because it's going to be all backwards, which it's exactly backwards. It's exactly backwards. All these SNPs are exactly backwards. So I was looking at this and I'm staring at this and saying, well, how in the world can this be? How in the world can they have evidence of it out of Africa? Descendancy. But when you understand that the Eurasians, the Japhethites, the Eurasians are the oldest. Japheth is the oldest son. Shem is the second son, and Ham is the youngest son. So this stair step has to be exactly the opposite of what they have these genetic markers showing. So instead of these genetic markers showing a stair step out of Africa, they have to be showing a stair step from the oldest son, Japheth, the Eurasian, the progenitor of the Eurasians, is the oldest son of Noah. A marker here, listen carefully. It's not that these markers are being gained going from left to right. It's that all these markers here, like this IJK, especially this IJK, because this K here, these K markers are exclusive to K and nobody else. But this IJK marker, it's not a marker being gained. It's not a stair step out of Africa. This marker is a marker that's being lost. That Japheth has and had, but it's a marker that is being lost to the younger generations or the younger people on down the line going this way from right to left. So it turns out this is evidence of the table of nations right here in front of our face, right here, waving in front of our face, in front of everybody's face, all the scientists. It's evidence waving, flying in your face of the table of nations right here. Because this IJK marker here can be shared with the oldest son of Shem. The oldest son of Shem can share a marker with his uncle Japheth. Because what it is that when Arpachshad was born, Shem, his father, shared this same marker with his brother. So Arpachshad, being the oldest son, can share this marker with his uncle Japheth. And then when Shem had his other son born, it was his Elam. When Elam was born, the brother of Arpachshad, Shem no longer had this IJK marker. So when Elam was born, Shem still had this marker, which is also shared by Japheth, which is also shared by Arpachshad. But then this marker here that Elam had was lost to his brother Asher. So, I might be not explaining it exactly right or whatever, but I hope you get the idea. So, HIJK is a marker that's shared by his uncle Japheth, his brother Arpachshad, and his father Shem at the time had this marker. That's how Elam got the marker. But then when Asher was born, Asher no longer had this marker. Shem no longer had this marker to give to Asher. Because these markers are like, there's millions and billions of them, or there's, I don't know about billions, but there's millions of markers. But it's not a marker being gained going left to right. Since you have to root the tree with Japheth, the oldest son of Noah. That means that the markers are being lost going right to left. It's not a marker being gained going from left to right. It's a marker being lost going from right to left. So you have it going all the way. IJK is a marker shared by Elam, Arpachshad, Shem at the time, and their uncle Japheth, who's the father of the Eurasians. The Eurasians, the ones that have more in common with Neanderthals. And then when Aram and Lud are born, they no longer have any of these markers here. They no longer have any of these markers here. It has to be that way. It can't be any other way because Japheth is the oldest son. So it has to be losing markers. And it's proving, as far as I'm concerned, it's proving that Arpachshad is the oldest son of Shem. It's proving that Elam was the next son to be born. It's proving that Asher was the next one to be born with genetic evidence. And it's proving that Aram and Lud were born later because there's two F. There's an F and there's F2 and even an F3 that are totally separate from each other. But then when we come to C can't be anybody else other than Nimrod. C has to be Nimrod because he's the only person that could have had as many descendants as C has in Asia. It goes all the way to America, all the way to Australia, all the way to the islands, Polynesia, Melanesia, and all those places, all the way to South America. The only person that could possibly have that many sons would be Nimrod. So it's proving here, instead of proving that everybody descended from Nimrod, which is nonsense to begin with, it's proving that Nimrod is the oldest son of Cush, who is the oldest son of Ham. So this marker, that CT, that C shares with the rest of the world, or even DE, but the CF, this P143, that C shares only with the rest of the world and not even his relatives, is evidence that Nimrod is the oldest son of Cush, who is the oldest son of Ham. That's the only possible explanation of this right here. So not only does it disprove the out of Africa claim with all these SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms, it's evidence for the Table of Nations, because Nimrod is the son of Cush. So when Nimrod was born, he shared this single nucleotide polymorphism with everyone else. That's CF, means C and F and the rest of the world. It's complicated, but that's what it means. And excluding D and E, which is Canaan, Put, and Mitzrayim, and excluding Nimrod's own brothers, which are descended from Cush. It means that Nimrod has to have been the oldest son, at least the oldest significant son, to share this marker with the rest of the world, with, in other words, his other two great uncles, which is Shem and Japheth. So Nimrod shares this marker with his two great uncles, Shem and Japheth. That's all it means. It's so simple. Not only is this not evidence of out of Africa, it's proof of the Table of Nations right here. What they're waving at us, what they're waving right in your nose, right in front of your face. This turns out to be evidence of the Tables of Nations right here. Because if you understand that C can't be anybody else other than Nimrod, and if you understand too that IJ can't be anybody else in the Arpachshad because of the Cohen modal haplotype and the Danites in Europe and the Arabs that also have the same JY chromosome. I mean, come on, Dr. Jensen. This right here is proof that Arpachshad was Shem's oldest son, and that Arpachshad shared this marker with his uncle Japheth. I mean, it's clear as day. It's clear as day when you understand that this is Arpachshad, that this is Japheth, and that this is Nimrod. Then you understand Aram and Lud. You understand the Assyrians are G, Elamites are H, and IJ is Arpachshad and Japheth. And then you can figure out everybody else. You can figure out everybody else, which is, where's R? R is Gomer. R1A is Ashkenaz. R1B is Ripfeth. R2 is Togarma. Q is the Medes, both in the area of the Medes and in Europe, where the Medes went in Europe, along with the mitochondrial DNA that accompanies the Medes, or Madai. O is Magog. N is Meshech. T is Javan in the Mediterranean, which also is Tarshish in Portugal, which is also in the Jewish population. The T is in the Jewish population because of Portugal, because of the Tarshish people are descended from Javan, in Portugal. L is the other Greek people, with Alexander the Great took L all the way to India because he liked riding elephants. He wanted to ride elephants, So the L went all the way to India because of Alexander the Great. J2, of course, we got the M410. That's J2. That's probably Judah. There's an M172, which is probably the descendants of David. But anyways, the J1, J2, I2, I1, I2 and I1 are the Danites in Europe, in the Mediterranean. In the Mediterranean, you have I2. In Northern Europe, you have I1, with Denmark, Danube, all that stuff, Sardinia in the Mediterranean with the I2. It has to fit known historical people, events. H is the Gypsies, who are also claimed to be Jewish. They have J2 in their population. The Gypsies, who are H, Elamites, claim to be also Jewish, and they have the second largest percentage of their Y chromosome of the Gypsies is J2, which is Jewish. It's just on and on and on. So H, G is the Assyrians. Can't be anybody else, basically. And God said he would deliver Israel from the Assyrians and Nimrod. God said he would what? Deliver the Israelites from who? The Assyrians and Nimrod. Okay. C being Nimrod. E2 is probably the Canaanites. E3 is the Egyptians. E1, wow, this is a different. They changed this, switched this all out. This is probably E3 right now. But this largest population of E's is, which is M80, I think that's right, would be descendants of Mitzrayim. But there's basically three groups of E, E1, E2, and E3, for the, but they switch it all up. They can't figure out how to label it. And the D is only the D is the Sinites. D is the namesake of Sinai, the namesake of Sinim in China, the Sino, Sinim, the Sinai. That's everywhere this, the Sinites went. They have the DY chromosome, which is descendant of Canaan, which is possible because it connects, the D connects right to the E, and the E2 specifically, more than likely. But if anybody has any corrections to make, you can let me know, what you think. But as far as I can tell, A and the B is Cush. E1 is Put. E2 is Canaan. E3 is Mitzrayim. And the D branches off from E2, and that's the Sinite tribe that went all the way to China and gave China the name of Sinim, which was later displaced by the O, Magog population. The O would be Magog. I mean, you have to, go by known history, specifically the Cohen modal haplotype of J1 P58. That's Cohen modal haplotype. Plus J2 172 is the descendants of the house of David, which is David and Solomon. The I-170 would be the Danites in Europe, because they were the shipbuilders in the Mediterranean. just on and on. The T, as I've already said, is the descendants of Javan. Of course, they are the Greeks that had trade with the Horn of Africa, and to this day, the greatest population of the T is in Africa, the Horn of Africa. And there's Greek people to this day in the Horn of Africa because of the trade that Javan had with the Horn of Africa, because they were sea-going people. They were, seafarers, and they went all the way to India as well, to the other side of India, if not with Alexander the Great as well, because they're Greek sea peoples. But they were probably doing their own thing while Alexander the Great went to go ride elephants, and so that's what happened there. But this is, God is faithful, and we can't be afraid of anything that they throw at us, because anything they throw at us is evidence of the truth of the Bible, truth of historical facts. Of course, there are no other ancient civilizations other than the 16 grandsons of Noah, and they're all right here. How many ancient civilizations can you name? I would like to ask Dr. Jensen, how many ancient civilizations can you name? Or maybe Donnie. I don't know if Donnie's into it. But, we got, who's this? Gomer, right? Madai, Magog. McKay's not here, is it? Check. Javan, Tiraz, Arpachshad. God promised Abraham to make many nations from Abraham. Of course, it's Arpachshad. It's all Abraham. Mostly Abraham, anyway. Elam, Asher, of course, Nimrod, which is Cush. And we got the other brothers of Cush, which is Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan. Right there. The only one missing from here would be Tubal, which is K. In Italy, to this day, in Italy, there's 8% of the population in central Italy is Tubal, which is where Tubal, went to first. The original population of Italy is Tubal. To this day, there's 8% of this population today is descended from Tubal, or K. Northern Italy, it's more like 4%. 4% of the northern Italian population that's descended from Tubal. Southern Italy, there's more people from other places. It's like 1% is Tubal. But some of the descendants of Tubal went all the way to, of course, Asia. Probably accompanying Magog, yeah. So Tubal went all the way to Asia, which is Papua New Guinea. It's the, Australia. So that area there, the K is found there as well. But it's it's cut and dry as far as I'm concerned, unless somebody can show me otherwise. But to me, this is proof positive of the Table of Nations outlined in Genesis. All the names here are, clear as day to me. You see that K? That means Japheth. See this IJ? That means Arpachshad. See this H? That means Elam. See this G? That means Assyria. F is several populations, a couple populations. It's Aram and Lud, unless somebody can, change my mind, about certain individuals. C is Nimrod. D is the Sinite tribe of Canaan. E is E1, E2, and E3, and that's the other descendants of Ham, other than Cush, who's the the father of Nimrod, but the other brothers of Cush just put Mitzrayim and Canaan. It's clear as day to me, clear as bell. So, if somebody gets a chance, talk around the what do you call it? Not the campfire, the fireplace. The fireplace. That's why I call myself Jungle Jargon, because I mix everything up. Just mention those things. Okay, E1B1B populations amongst Jewish populations are described to be. Let me put this on here. Hold on a second. David says E1B1B populations amongst the Jewish populations are described to be one who joined with God of Israel while Hebrews were still in Egypt, third of population before crossing the Red Sea, 3 million. That's very interesting and probably very good observation there from David. Because it's a significant population. E1B, which is basically Mitzrayim, it's a certain lineage, what he's describing, a certain lineage of Mitzrayim is in the Jewish population, and it's true. The same way that there's a lineage of the Assyrian population in the Jewish population as well. But that's a very good observation. See, that's why I want to, put this out there so I can learn more and get more information, from people that know stuff that I don't know, because I'm just, showing what my observations are. And this is a good observation right there from David. It's my question, Jay, and I Semitic thought. Okay. Are you Jewish? Yeah. I believe David is Jewish. I mean, he's probably more Jewish than I am, but we both share the same Y chromosome, except that David is a J2 and I'm a J1. But we're both descendants of Jacob, in that case. See, Egyptians joined with the Hebrews. Heart of it. Oh, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense for the Egyptians, Mitzrayim, to be in the Jewish population. Makes a lot of sense. Same thing with Assyrians, because of the exile to Assyria, several times. Okay. I2M. See, the David is an I2. I2 M223. I'm an I1 M253. 12 Serbia Christian populations versus Kosovo Muslim populations, but not just religious conflicts, but ethnicity for a long time, just like Israel versus Palestine. 12 marker Serbia. I2 marker Serbia. Well, Serbia, Croatia, and the Baltics, I think they have a lot of I2 in that area, which is, the Danube. It's the Danube area, The Danube is what? Dan, the tribe of Dan, in the Danube. But anyways, So I guess that's good enough for right now. I'm just trying to get the message out. I don't want to be hurtful to anybody, but I want to get the message out, especially with an evolutionary claim, which, nobody is responding to. Yeah, the mark of Dan. And I even think that Sardinia it was originally Sardan, and if you translate that Sardan into Hebrew, that would be Prince Dan. Because, the foreigners didn't know how to, pronounce Sardan, so they would say, uh, what was it? They would say like sandal, sandalia, or sandalia, or something, but it always remained, close to Sardan. But anyways, that's just my belief of what's probably what's happening with the language, because Sardinia has been controlled by different people different times. If you look it up, and they just kind of like pronounce it with something they recognize, like a sandalia, a sandal, but it's still Sardan to me. What about Magog? Meshech is Russia. Magog went all the way east, and Magog is China, believe it or not. So it's kind of interesting, Gog, Magog, Meshech, and Tubal. But anyways, yeah, Magog would be China, which migrated east and kind of like pushed out the Sinim residents, is what I was trying to explain before. The Sinim residents were descendants of Canaan, the Canaanite Sinite tribe. Well, Meshech is Russia. Yeah, Meshech is Russia. And basically, Meshech went north and stayed north, except that Magog migrated to the east, so they're trying. But that's almost even worse, in that both Russia and China are Gog and Magog. Gog, Magog, Meshech, and Tubal. But Meshech being still being a northern population, But anyways, and then Tubal would be Italy, because Italy's had their problems too, but they're basically almost half Judaic now, but they migrated with Magog to Asia as well. So the K of Tubal went east with Magog as well. So they're in Asia too. Yep. But it's interesting, and to me, we can't leave the out of Africa claim not being addressed. Yeah. So Ezekiel 38 could be joining Russia and China. Yeah. No, very good questions. My questions too. They've been my questions as well. So yeah, but it's amazing how the Y haplogroups, explain so much. There's so much that we can learn, but especially to refute the out of Africa claim, because we know it's nonsense. But we have to show to them how it's nonsense. And if you, follow the history, know the history, follow the history, and match people up correctly, you can prove not only is it not an out of Africa claim, that it's false, that the out of Africa claim is false, but you can also, in the same stroke, you can prove the Table of Nations back at them. So they're waving this in our face and saying, look at these SMPs. Look at these SMPs that proves out of Africa. Only if those SMPs are being gained, those genetic markers are being gained from left to right. But what if Japheth is the oldest son, which he is, And what if he's the one most related to Neanderthals, or his, his descendants are Neanderthals? What if that's the case and you root the tree with Japheth? What if it's a marker being lost, going from right to left, which it has to be? And if that's the case, you have the table of nations right there being proved, being back verified with genetic S&P markers, which is, to me, is very significant. We should be like shouting, this being Christmas should be, go tell it on the mountain. Go tell everybody you can. Tell anybody and everybody you can that the S&Ps are not proving out of Africa. They're proving the table of nations going from right to left. Because the out of Africa is nonsense to begin with. We know it's nonsense. It's senseless. It makes no sense at all. Because the genetic diversity, for one thing, is in the Near East, what they call the Near East, right? That's where the genetic diversity is of the haplogroups, both haplogroups and mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosomes. Yeah. So, yeah. So, hope everybody has a great Christmas, in spite of my preaching, my being forceful, which, I don't like to be forceful, but sometimes you have to be, So, because you get the message. I mean, this is a very important thing. This is a very important claim that the evolutions are making. If nobody's addressing, there's something wrong with that. If there's no creationists in the world addressing this, when it's proving the table of nations, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with that, and somebody needs to tug on somebody's coattail or something, get their attention kindly, and say we got to be doing something more than what we are. Would I debate? Yeah, that's a good question. No, I would. Wow, who's great? I don't know who Grayson is, but yeah, I would definitely have a discussion to explain it. Question is whether Donnie would accept a debate like that, or Grayson. But yeah, I would be willing. I would definitely be willing. And in fact, I would love to explain it. I've been explaining it here several times, but I know people can't watch the whole, the whole hour or something presentation, which I'm showing. Happy Hanukkah to you, light of Christ Jesus, this season. Here we go. I got to put this on here. Look at this. Happy Hanukkah to you, light of Christ Jesus, this season. It is really connected, Christmas and Hanukkah together. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the only mention of Hanukkah is in the New Testament. The New Testament is the only scripture that mentions Hanukkah. It says, Jesus was walking in the portico of Solomon, and it was winter, and it was Hanukkah, the feast of dedication. Happy Hanukkah. The festival of lights. The festival of lights. A light to lighten Gentiles' will, and the glory of my people Israel. Okay, with that, God bless everybody. Everybody take care and stay close to our Lord and our Savior. God bless.